Our project was on Sister Callista Roy and her grand theory, Roy's adaptation model. Callista Roy is an admirable nurse and woman in the history of nursing education and practice. She was born in 1939 in Los Angeles and is currently still alive at 83 years old and an active fellow in the American Academy of Nursing. She has been a staff nurse in multiple states, including Tucson, Arizona, and Lewiston, Idaho, and joined the faculty at St. Mary's College in 1996 in Arizona. Between the years of 2003 and 2006, she served on the board of International Network for Doctoral Education. She also served as a visiting professor around the world, including programs in Colombia, Sweden, and Chile. Roy developed the adaptation model in 1976. The three main concepts include human being, adaptation, and nursing. She is not only known for this model, she has over 100 publications, including 11 books. She is a highly educated woman with several awards and medals that all nurses can learn and grow from. Roy has received many degrees over the course of her lifetime. She received her BSN in 1963 and then her master's in 1966, concluding with her PhD in 1977. After completing her doctorate, she completed a 2-year postdoctorate at UCSF. She spent most of her time in LA or Boston. In the midst of her education, she created her well-known theory and model that is still being taught and used today. Roy has most recently been a professor at Mount St. Mary's University and at Boston College Cornell School of Nursing. She has provided a foundation for studies across 5 continents, nursing programs, and implementation practice objects. She is a writer, researcher, and award-winning nurse. Sister Callista Roy truly began her primary development and completion of her adaptation model from the years 1964 to 1966. Influences such as her family, education, religious background, mentors, and clinical experience were eminent in her life. World events also play a huge role in her journey for the adaptation model. Some major events that happened during the years 1964 to 1966 include the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. received his Nobel Prize, Lyndon B. Johnson was elected president in 1964, the Vietnam War and anti-war protests were occurring, and the passing of both the Voting Rights Act and Immigration Act. Additionally, women had a different role during this time. Television showed women of the 60s to be homemakers, secretaries, nurses, and teachers, along with being a happy wife and mother. Men, on the other hand, were great fathers and husbands who had to maintain being the main providers and career men in order to bode well in society. However, they did not stay at home and take care of the children. Medicine was ever-changing during Roy's earlier start in her model in the 1960s, and healthcare was already becoming a huge enterprise. Change associated with healthcare, such as the introduction of Medicare and Medicaid, as well as invasive surgeries such as liver and heart transplants, became more apparent. The CDC grew even stronger during this time, in means of launching a campaign to eradicate measles. Some of the more prominent diseases of Roy's earlier years were hand, foot, and mouth disease and the smallpox pandemic. In the nursing aspect, education to become a nurse started to grow. The ANA pushed to make professional nursing practice a baccalaureate program. During these times, the Nurse Training Act and the Allied Health Professionals Personnel Training Act of 1966 was also enacted. Roy created the adaptation model to ultimately improve nursing care through a structured 6-step nursing process. A nurse has to take a step back and consider all changing aspects of a patient's life that contribute to their health and wellness. This helps us to see a patient as an individual with many different interrelated systems that are consistent with adapting in order to cope with change within themselves and the outside world. This will encourage us to promote positive adaptation. Roy was persuaded of the value of defining nursing as a service to society after working with Dorothy E. Johnson. This gave her the idea to start creating her nursing model with adaptability promotion as the main objective. As she created the course materials for the nursing students at Mount St. Mary's College, she first started organizing her theory of nursing. She presented her theories as the framework factors that influenced the RAM were family, education, religious background, mentors, and clinical experience. The theory is plainly described as assisting the client to adapt to and overcome the stresses of illness and environmental factors. It considers 4 parts, including the theory of physiologic mode, the theory of self-concept mode, the theory of interdependence mode, and the theory of role function mode. Roy's goal was to promote adaptation in nursing. Her model asks the questions: who is the focus of nursing care? What is the target of nursing care? And when is nursing care indicated? Roy explains that adaptation occurs when people respond positively to environmental changes. It is the process and outcome of individuals and groups who use conscious awareness, self-reflection, and choice to create human and environmental integration. Roy believes a person is a biophysiological being, and that they are in constant interaction with the changing environment in which they use their innate and acquired mechanisms to adapt. Additionally, she mentions that health is a continuum process in which an individual is always in the state and process of being and becoming integrated and whole. The adaptation model includes a 6-step nursing process. The first level of assessment, which addresses the patient's behavior. The second level of assessment, which addresses the patient's stimuli, diagnosis of the patient, setting goals for the patient's health, intervention to take actions in order to meet those goals, and evaluation of the result to determine if goals were met. Based on the patient's progress towards health throughout the nursing process, the nurse and other healthcare experts should modify the nursing care plan. There are 4 implicit assumptions in the adaptation model, which state: a person can be reduced to parts for study and care. Nursing is based on causality. A patient's values and opinions should be considered and respected. A state of adaptation frees a person's energy to respond to other stimuli. The adaptive model also makes 10 explicit assumptions. The person is a biopsychosocial being. The person is in constant interaction with the changing environment to cope with the changing world. A person uses coping mechanisms, both innate and acquired. Both are biological, psychological, and social in origin. Health and illness are inevitable dimensions of a person's life. In order to respond positively to environmental changes, a person must adapt. A person's adaptation is a function of the stimulus he is exposed to and his adaptation level. The person's adaptation level is such that it comprises a zone of indicating the range of stimulation that will lead to a positive response. The person has 4 modes of adaptation: physiological needs, self-concept, role function, and interdependence. Nursing accepts the humanistic approach of valuing others' opinions and perspectives. Interpersonal relations are an integral part of nursing. And lastly, there is a dynamic objective for existence with the ultimate goal of achieving dignity and integrity. The 4 main parts of a meta-paradigm are person, environment, nursing, and health. In McEwen and Will's book, Wagner fully explains these 4 topics. The author also examined how each theorist interpreted meta-paradigm. Roy further explored health as a state and process of being and becoming an integrated and whole person. It is a reflection of adaptation, that is, the interaction of the person, and with environment, all conditions, circumstances, and influences that surround and affect the development and behavior of a human adaptive systems, with particular consideration of a person and earth source. The RAM can be used in many search studies. The RAM sees the person as a biophysical being and continuous interaction with the changing environment. This changing environment includes stimuli, many stimuli beliefs, behaviors, and personal experiences. Roy defined health as a process of being and nursing as a science. As seen in the quote above, Roy was trying to ensure adaptation within nursing. As mentioned before, Roy believed each individual to be a biopsychosocial being, meaning each of her four main concepts in her meta-paradigm, including person, environment, health, and nursing, are all interrelated. According to the RAM, the purpose of nursing is to ensure adaptation. Therefore, when increasing adaptation during health and disease means improvement in the interaction between the environment and human systems and thus improving health. Her main theory, she added, that nurses help the needs of individuals through modes of adaptation, including physiologic, self-concept, role function, and interdependence. First, the physiologic mode includes the physical and chemical processes within an individual's life and activities. Its requirements are based on physiologic integrity and consists of 9 basic physiologic requirements. 1. Oxygenation. 2. Nutrition. 3. Elimination. 4. Activity and rest. 5. Protection. 6. Senses. 7. Fluid electrolyte and acid-base balance. 8. Neurologic function. And 9. Endocrine function. Self-concept includes an individual's mixture of beliefs and feelings about themselves or others and consists of the physical self and personal identity. Physical self, meaning body image and body sense, and personal identity is formed by their thoughts, moral ethics, and spirituality. The role function model is an individual's role in society for social integrity. It is divided into 3 roles. 1. Primary roles such as gender, female or male. 2. Secondary roles such as roles including mother, father, teacher, etc. And 3. Tertiary roles such as president of an association. Lastly, interdependence is explained by the behavior and mutual relations of individuals and groups. In the aspect of the individual, the mode focuses on interactions related to love, respect, giving, and receiving value. For groups, this includes the situation, infrastructure, and the capability of members. All in all, it involves economic, social, political, and cultural factors and includes the mission, aim, vision, value, belief, and goals of the group. Roy believes all of these modes are essential and interrelated because it is through the use of all of them together that we are able to provide holistic care to people. This is a diagram of the model, highlighting the connection of the 4 adaptive modes. Roy's goal of nursing was the promotion of adaptation. The article that provided the testability data for the RAM was Experiences of Disease Adaptation in Patients with Heart Failure. There were 4 modes of RAM that were used as a framework for data collection. Those modes were physiological, self-concept, role function, and interdependence. The 11 themes that were identified based off of those 4 categories of RAM were physiological, which included unbalanced nutrition, inappropriate activities, unrestricted intake of liquid, excessive sodium intake. Self-concept, which included worrying about the future, negative emotions, poor spiritual aspect. Role function, which included inability to fulfill social roles, forced to stop work. And interdependence, which included interprofessional alienation and less communication with friends and family. The study was focused on exploring the experiences of adaptation in heart failure patients according to the RAM. The purpose was to guide the patients with heart failure to adapt to their disease and for healthcare providers to attach importance to patients' disease adaptation. The study interviewed 21 patients from 2 hospitals in China with heart failure and comorbidities. The RAM was considered testable in this study, and the researchers were able to find that the most participants with heart failure experience poor adaptation. The identified modes of RAM can be used to help physicians adjust treatment for those who have failed to adapt to heart failure diagnosis, and offer a new perspective on the experiences of disease adaptation in patients with heart failure. Parsimony is a very helpful method in nursing to decide whether the theory you have selected is appropriate for your research method. Things to think about while doing so are whether or not the theory is simple or complex, stated clearly and concisely, and it is thoroughly explained for the user. Research showed that some of the RAM was simple in the way that it uses the standard nursing problem-solving process and is user-friendly. Quoted in McEwan's and Will's textbook, the RAM is accessible, elegant, and practical. On the other hand, feedback was also found that it is complex in the form of requiring assessments on 2 levels and is not parsimonious due to its elements, systems, structures, and concepts. There were numerous middle-range theories developed after the birth and growth of Roy's grand theory of her adaptation model. One theory is something that is very relatable as a healthcare worker, which is a theory of caregiver stress. This theory proposes that both depression and perceived caregiver stress are considered coping mechanisms. It also states that depression is the emotional portion of the cognitor subsystem, which includes the 4 main adaptive modes Roy mentions in her subtheories, including the physiologic mode, the self-concept mode, the role function mode, and the interdependence mode. And therefore, the immediate outcome of that depression is caregiver stress. That concludes our presentation. Thank you so much.